Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps Law Firm for Seniors and Disabled Persons. Good to have you here. My name's Eric, attorney for 48 years, the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm. What we do is we represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt in order to stop debt collectors from harassing them. And we educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. We have this YouTube live channel 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, where you can put your questions on the chat feature. I'll address them. You can also visit our website down below, www.helpsishere.org, or you can always call us with your questions. Thanks for your support. For those that ask questions, appreciate that. So first thing, I've got someone contacted us and said, please help me. I'm 68 years old, being sued by debt collectors. I've been summoned by Citibank to show up in court on March 23rd. I'm worried that they would eventually put a lien on my vehicle. I'm on Social Security, struggling making credit card debts and loans. So if this person's on Social Security and that money is protected, okay, no one can take it. They can't garnish Social Security. Then you might ask, well, what about a pension? Well, it's protected too under a federal law called ERISA, Employment Retirement Income Security Act of 1974. Now, not all pensions are protected under ERISA, but if it's not protected under ERISA, then it's protected under a state law. In 48 years of practice, I've never seen anyone be able to take anyone's pension. Okay, now, then you might ask, well, what happens when it hits the bank account? And they get it, if they have a judgment against you and they garnish your bank account. Back in 2012, Congress or lawmakers passed a rule that says that if a bank gets a writ of garnishment, they have to examine where the money came from that was deposited into your bank account. And if it came from a federal source like Social Security, they take the amount you received in the last 60 days. So twice the amount you got each month, normally is what it is, 60 days. And they protect that sum from garnishment. Okay, so if you got $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 in your bank account is protected, even if some of the money in the account came from another source. So we'll call this person back. They're not going to be able to take his vehicle. It's going to be okay. States have different laws to protect a certain amount of equity in cars or equity in a home or equity in household goods. But it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors like a credit card company, if they were to sue you and get a judgment, to go after and take your property, even if you have equity in the property over and above the homestead exemption. Pretty much just limited to, or the exemption for that asset in under state law. Their efforts are pretty much limited to maybe trying to garnish a bank account if they think you have one. But as I earlier explained, your bank account is protected. Okay. So Ms. H asks, how many times can a creditor sue a senior after getting a judgment for the same credit card account? Well, once you've sued and they have a judgment, that's it. If you got sued again on the same debt, someone's making a mistake. They can't legally sue you. We don't see that happening. I mean, I suppose it has happened, but but it wouldn't matter if you were sued on the same debt 100 times. I mean, you could always defend yourself if they did that, but if they did it, they're still not going to be able to collect if your income's protected, like we're discussing here. But it's not an issue. When you get a judgment, that's the end of it. No one else is going to sue you. Now, the company that sued you, the law firm, may try to collect on the judgment, okay, and may try to take some supplemental proceedings, and we talk about that. If a senior had a credit card and a big amount was charged on it was from a family member without our consent, they stopped paying the card. Are they responsible for the debt? They're a client of Helps. Well, if it was incurred fraudulently, technically no. They could file an answer or or defend themselves and be able to put off evidence that they didn't incur that debt, that someone fraudulently used their name. Um, although, you know, if someone used your card over a period of time and it wasn't you and you didn't notify the creditor that that person wasn't authorized to use your card, the court could very easily say that, hey, that was a permissive user of the card, therefore you're responsible for the debt because you didn't inform the credit card company that it was someone was not authorized to use the card. Okay, you know, it all boils down to this. You know, if your income is protected, like I've explained, um, none of these other things really matter. I mean, you can defend yourself from a lawsuit if you think you have a basis for doing that. You don't have to, but you can. You may not be able to afford to hire an attorney, but the important thing for you to understand is that your income is protected. They can't take it from you, and your bank account is protected. Therefore, you know, if you're not in the position to defend yourself or know how to do it, or be able to afford an attorney to do it, and it may not make sense for you to do that if your income is minimal. Social Security, it really doesn't matter. Your income's protected. They can't do anything to you. You're going to be fine. But you can always call and talk to us, and we'll go over this with you. You know, the whole the miracle about helps, if you call it a miracle, is that, you know, we represent our clients ongoing. It's not just one time. It's literally forever. So if you have a question, you can always call. So if you get sued a year, 2, 3, or 4 years down the road, you let us know. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you. We're going to let them know that your income is protected and you're not going to defend the lawsuit. They can get a judgment, but they can't collect from you. We're going to call you, explain why you don't need to go to court. So that's what helps us out, so that if you would ever have a question, you can always call. Okay? We don't want you to worry. Okay. Person contacts us from Georgia, and they said, uh, we need to talk to someone about signing up for your services. We have reached the point where we can no longer keep up with payments on our credit cards and our RV. I just tried calling and got a really bad connection. Maybe this evening or in the morning would be better for a call back. Also, if there's info we need to get together for the call, please send a list to my email. You know, there's really no list of things that we need when you call us. We're just going to ask you some basic questions about your situation. Maybe I'll go over those questions right now. Just kind of a brief summary. Hold on here. We're going to ask you some basic questions. You're going to either talk to one of our attorneys or one of our paralegals. And here we go. So, and each of us handle a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same. We save all this information. So, you know, sometimes people call us 3, 4, 5, or 6 times or even more before they decide to enroll in helps. Our questions are not that intrusive. We just have to have some basic information. I always tell people when they call, you know, some people want to ask a question right at the start and get an answer. I always say I can answer some questions if I can ask a few at first. if I answer a question for someone and it may not be the complete answer or have the complete information that person needs, that's why we need to ask some basic questions in the beginning. And so we're just going to ask for your first and last name, maybe ask for your phone number so that if we need to call you back or we lose you on the call, we can call you back. And we're going to just ask the state where you live, because state laws change. There's different states have different rules, and we need to know where you live to be able to tell you about that information. And then your age, and if you're married, your wife's first name and his or her name, his or her age. Because the reason we know the age is, a person that's 62, the information they need could be completely different from someone who's in their 70s or 80s or 90s. So we need to know an age, okay? Sometimes people will call on someone's behalf, and we're happy to talk to them about that other person they're calling about. We always ask how you found us, where you found us at. We need that for our internal things. And then we're going to ask you where your source of income. Is it Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefit, a job? We have different categories. We list it. We don't need the exact amount, just an approximate amount. And sometimes we're going to ask you, where you, if you owe money to the bank, where you bank. Now, the reason we ask that is because, if you bank at a credit union and you're not going to pay the credit union for whatever reason, they could offset money out of your bank account. We want to know that to be able to tell you to change to a different bank account. So we want to know if you owe money to your bank for a couple of little reasons. Want to know if you're renting or buying. If you're renting, we want to know the approximate amount of rent you're paying. That factors into your budget, and if you're buying a home, what do you think the home is worth? And what's the mortgage payment and how much you owe on it. Once in a while, I'll ask for an address and I'll type that in the computer and I'll be able to get a good idea what your home is worth. See, that determines how much equity you have in the home, because something that we might need when we're talking about your situation. Ask about your car, if you're buying it, you own the car, what you owe on it, the year, make, and model. I'm going to ask you if you've been sued. Okay, we need to know that. If you owe any income taxes, and approximately what you owe in unsecured debt, like credit cards and medical bills. Now, with that information, that's the basic information that we need. And then we're going to read you a little script about what we do and explain how your income is protected and creditors can't take it. And then we're going to tell you a little about it helps and what we do. So that's what we do when you call in. And that's it, And we've got all that information saved so that if you call back later, we've got that information. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So you're going to be fine. So we don't need you don't need to prepare a list for us. We don't need exact, we don't need exact amounts. Okay. We don't need exact numbers. We just need approximate numbers. Person calls us and they say, I'm a 74-year-old single woman. I'm making credit card payments faithfully. I have a car payment. Also, my home is paid off, but at the end of the month, I barely have money to buy groceries. I want to know if I stop paying my credit cards, Can they come after my home? I need my car for going to doctor's appointments and just getting around. Will I be able to keep my car? So, okay, different states have different rules and different laws that protect equity in a home or equity in a car. For example, uh, Florida and Texas have pretty much unlimited exemptions on equities in a home. Doesn't matter what your home is worth. A creditor were to sue you, they can't take the home. But some states have really small amounts of equity that's protected. I think Virginia only at $6,000. But frankly, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors like a credit card company to try to take a person's home, even if that person has equity over and above the exemption for the state where they live. Now, why isn't that? For a lot of different reasons. It can be stopped, for one thing. There's different type of bankruptcy that could stop it. Another reason is maybe the home is owned by a husband and a wife, and maybe the debt is only owed by the husband, or maybe the children are on the title of the home. There's a lot of reasons why they're not going to go after your home, and we can talk about that. What about your car? Same thing. States have different laws that protect certain amount of equities in cars. It's not the general practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after a person's car. It's expensive for them to do that. And once again, it could be stopped in different ways, and so you don't need to worry about it. I mean, we just don't see it happening. It's happened, but so very, very rare that it's not worth talking about. Um, Sometimes attorneys talk to people and give them advice based on um, odds that are so remote that they don't tell the client about the odds of something happening. And that should always factor in when you're giving advice about things. Okay? Ann says a credit card sold my account to someone and now they want the money. I called Helps and they're using my address for Helps and sent a copy of the letter to Helps. Right. If you enroll in Helps and if you get a collection notice, obviously from a new debt collector or from an original collector, you let us know. We're going to send a cease and desist letter to that collector or that creditor, and they're going to stop bothering you anymore. That's the whole purpose of Helps, so they leave you alone. Person contacts us from Georgia again. Says, I'm 85 years old and I've lost my source of income due to factors beyond my control. I would like to avoid Chapter 7 bankruptcy if possible. Any advice would be much appreciated. So I'm 75. Hard to believe. I filed my first bankruptcy back in 1978 when I first graduated from law school. And 1986, I practiced nothing but bankruptcy and formed a very large bankruptcy law firm still in existence. Probably filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies until Helps was started in 2012. And I would talk to seniors would come in and I'd tell them, hey, your income is protected. No one can take anything from you. They're not going to touch your assets. You really don't need to file bankruptcy. And many of them couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. But the problem is I knew when they went home, creditors could call them, okay, even though they couldn't really do anything to them, but it'd be scare and intimidate them. And sometimes they get sued. So Helps was started to represent seniors under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. If you're represented by an attorney, collectors have to leave you alone. So that's what we do. We represent you. If you got sued, you get us a copy of the lawsuit. We send a letter to the attorney who sued you, let them know that your income's protected. You're not going to do anything. They understand they can get a judgment. We're going to call you, explain why you don't need to go to court, why your money in your bank account is protected. So that's what we do. So when this person said, I would like to avoid Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're 85. I remember I'd go to bankruptcy hearings when I was doing bankruptcy, and an attorney would show up with someone in their 80s or 70s, and I'd listen to the case and I would say to myself, why is that attorney filing bankruptcy for that person? They had no need to file bankruptcy. He was just trying to collect a fee. And sometimes the bankruptcy trustee would say the same thing to the attorney. he knew that the person was judgment proof. The trustee would say, so, they would say it in a soft way. They didn't want to embarrass the attorney, but no, there can be exceptions, but they're very rare, very rare. Okay. So here's the next question. Said this was from one of our staff. It says she was told by a bankruptcy attorney that due to her income, she did not need to file bankruptcy. That's the advice attorneys should give. Okay, for someone that doesn't need to file bankruptcy, you don't need to file. Then it says she went through J.D. Wentworth with a law firm, so all of her debt is one big debt. So in other words, she went to this debt management company and paying them. She says she's paying $600 a month, but did a stop payment with them. And one of our paralegals told her that we could help her with this problem. We went over what we do. We sent her some emails about helps and what we do. And it says, they said, well, they may give us a call back to enroll. They sent an email, a general email about helps and what we do, who can helps. And then on February 10th, we talked to them again. And they called again on February 12th. They couldn't open an email we'd sent them. They had a hard time doing that. And we talked and finally got them the information they wanted. They called back on February 25th. Sounds like today. Called, ready to enroll, quoted the fees for this particular case, and enrolled them. And then they're going to get us the creditors they owe money to. They also give us a couple other things. We have a kind of a power of attorney form that we send to clients that enroll with helps. It's not a real power of attorney. All it is a client that enrolls with helps gives us authority to talk to creditors on their behalf. Because once in a while, we'll talk to a creditor. They'll call us on the phone. Do you represent so-and-so? Yes. Well, they want proof that we are authorized to speak on your behalf about the debt. So we have a form where you sign that and you give that to us after you enroll, where you gave us authority to talk to a creditor on your debt. So that way they don't bother you. Not all creditors ask for that. They really technically don't need it, but we give it to them just to solve problems. And then we also ask for proof of your income after you enroll. Like the statement you got from Social Security. Because once in a while, a creditor will ask us, well, helps, you're telling us that this person gets Social Security. How can we believe you? So if we can send them some proof that your income is Social Security, we deduct certain information off of it. It just makes them less likely that they're going to follow up with it. They'll send it, that they're not going to send it to a different collector, or they're may not even going to bother with filing a lawsuit. Okay? Person contacts us. This is someone else. They said, I'm a senior worried about Citibank suing me. They summoned me 2 weeks ago. When would be the best time to call you? I'm in Missouri. I'm 68 years old. Well, I mean, you can call us. Our phones get answered, I'm guessing, from about 9 o'clock Eastern time till about 7 o'clock Eastern time. So that would be about 6 o'clock Pacific time to 5 o'clock Pacific time, and then in between. So you're going to be able to get a hold of us. We answer, a live person answers the phone with helps when we're there. You're going to get a human being that's going to talk to you. And if there's not a paralegal attorney available, we're going to take some information, then we're going to call you back. Okay? Ms. H always has these good questions. How do it helps work with a client that does not have a computer or use the internet when they call you? How do you explain or get them enrolled in the program? Well, that happens fairly regularly, not that often. Things have changed since 2012. Now it's, what, 15, 16 years later, seniors getting older, they're more computer savvy. But once in a while, yeah, we'll talk to someone that doesn't have a computer. We can still enroll them. When we enroll people in HELPS, if they have a computer or the internet, an email, we like to keep them on the phone. We'll push a button, they'll get sent an email immediately confirming they're a member of HELPS. Okay? Now, if you don't have email or computer to get that, we can't do that. However, often a senior that doesn't have a computer, they may be able to get email on their telephone, or if they can't get email on their telephone, they can get a text. So if we enroll someone that doesn't have an email but they get text, we'll just inform I personally inform one of our receptionists if I do it myself. I'll say, send this person the text that they're enrolled with HELPS. We have an abbreviated welcome letter on our text that we send to them that has all the pertinent information they need. And then I've been known to a person may have a computer, but they may not know anything about, not have an email address. I've been known to contact our tech guy and tell him to call this person and get them set up on email and tell them how to use email because it'll change their life. Okay? So I've been known to do that. So it doesn't matter. We'll make it work with you. Or sometimes someone will call us. I said, well, do you have a child? Maybe one of the kids. Well, yeah, my kid told me to call you. Well, why don't we use their email address? And so we can email it to someone else. So we work it out. So you don't have to be completely computer savvy to enroll in HELPS. We want to help you. Okay? So we make it work. Now, if I live long enough, which I hope I do, there may be a time when everyone will be computer savvy. They'll, or at least a little bit computer savvy enough. But it doesn't matter. We'll make it work for you. Person contacts us from Florida. They get Social Security of about $1,100, VA benefit of about $1,400. So both those are federal benefits, completely protected. And it's being sued by a collection agency and wants to know if she still has to pay. No. If you've been sued, you don't have to pay. Or if they have a judgment, you can stop paying them. You don't have to pay them. We sent in an email about HELPS and the cost, and sent an email contained about this YouTube Live that we do, Monday through Thursday. And we also sent an email about lawsuit fears, where they don't need to worry about the lawsuit. We talked to them then left a message on February 20th and again on the 24th. Okay. We started to talk to them, then they had to talk to us later because they were having lunch or something. We're easy. And they got sued for a debt. They lived in Florida. We explained why they didn't need to pay the debt. We talked about a reverse mortgage with this particular person. And it looks like they enrolled in HELPS. So yesterday, someone asked me about selling a life insurance policy. This is something that really happens rare. Life settlement. So let's say if you had a life insurance policy, and it would be normally it'd be a whole life policy. It could be a term policy, but normally it'd be a whole life policy. In the policy, you'd have to be a fair amount, at least $100,000. There are persons that will offer to give you money in exchange for the life insurance so that they're going to be the beneficiary. And see, if you had a life insurance policy that was paid for, you've got the beneficiary could be your kids or someone like that, and maybe the kids they're not going to need the money, but you could use an extra money. So if you could either liquidate the life insurance policy, but you might get a lesser sum. But if you sold the life insurance to someone and maybe they were going to continue making some payments for a while, you might get more. You probably get more money than you would by surrendering it to the insurance company. And so someone might be interested in buying that. There's companies that actually would buy that life insurance. They're more likely to buy it if you've got if you're sick, if you're going to be dying next few years or whatever. And then they're not going to give you the full amount of the life insurance, but they're going to give you part of it. Now, the reason they do that is they give you the money now, and then when you die, they're going to get the full benefit. So that's how they make their profit on it. I don't get involved in that. I can send information on that. There's information on the internet available to that. Probably doesn't apply to too many people. But I wanted to talk about that since it came up yesterday, and I didn't get into it. It's something we just really don't deal with very often. But we could send you links information that would be able to help you make that decision. It could make sense. It could make sense. Yeah, J.D. Wentworth did file bankruptcy, but it's such a common name that after bankruptcy, someone bought the name or they rehabilitated themselves, and now they're into a different type of business. Okay, part of it is debt management or debt settlement. So this person asked, they said, I'm disabled, but I don't know if I'm a senior. So I'm 62. Do I qualify as a senior? I'm being sued and I'm scared. Okay, well, HELP stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors and Disabled Persons. It doesn't matter how old you are. It depends on the source of your income. If you get disability, a pension, Social Security, you could get Social Security disability and be 30 years old or 20 years old or 40 or 50. It doesn't matter. Your Social Security is protected no matter your age. And they say, I'm scared. Okay? You don't need to be scared. If you're scared, please call us on the phone and talk to us. You won't regret it. We're real nice on the phone. My staff is really nice. They're going to be patient with you. They're going to ask you some questions. We're going to go over your situation. And when we're done talking to you, you're going to be relieved and you're going to realize you don't need to be scared. And then one thing we're going to tell you is that you can call us as often as you need to. That's the beauty about helps is you don't get charged for a phone call when you call helps. When you're our client, you're our client. You can call every day if you want. I've told the story many times, but I know new people listen. This couple from Oklahoma. It could have been 8, 9 years ago. They enrolled. And they called every single day. Why? Because the wife was really worried. And they weren't that old, but they were just worried. And every time I talk to them, and I talk to them a lot, and I tell them, I say, okay, I understand we don't mind you calling. Call whenever you want. I understand. But I kept telling them, one of these days you're going to finally realize that you don't need to worry. And when that happens, you're going to stop calling us every day. Oh, Mr. Olsen, I'll probably be calling you every day. Well, I haven't talked to him in ages. So I'm pretty sure there still helps clients, and they've realized that they don't need to worry. Okay, so I say that to you, you know, please, if you're having these financial problems and you're a senior or disabled and you're on protected income and you have debt you can't afford to pay and you're going without, or the creditors are harassing you, call us so we can go over your situation with you. We don't turn anyone away. The cost of help is minimal, or it can be free, depends on your situation. Uh, the most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, then $20 for 24 months free thereafter, or it could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months free thereafter. It depends. It's kind of a sliding scale. Remember, when you enroll in helps, you don't have to pay these creditors anymore. But in some situations, the fee would be waived. Okay. And if you needed to miss a month, we can deal with that. There's a whole lot of things. The only reason we charge is because, we got staff we need to pay. We got to deal with the phone calls. We have some basic expenses, but it's very affordable. Helps is. So don't hesitate to call. And don't worry about the money. We'll make it work for you. Person asks, they say, I have 8 collection accounts. I want to take a part-time job to supplement my income. Will they garnish that income? Um, Probably not. I'll explain why. First off, he's going to take a part-time job. There's a federal law that protects $217.50 net per week in wages in every single state. So that's $435 every 2 weeks. It's about $950 a month. Okay. You might say, well, Eric, there's 4 weeks in a month. 435 times 2, that's 870. Why'd you say 950? Well, because there's 52 weeks in a year, and a lot of times, if you there's more than 4 weeks in a month. Okay, so when I say 9, it's actually about 945 is protected. But then there's some states that protect more than that. Some states don't even permit a garnishment. North Carolina, Texas, okay, I think South Carolina too. They don't permit garnishment, and then some states protect more than that. 217.50, like California is like at least $700 a week. I think Nevada's 450. I mean, it depends on the state. Okay, but and then they'd have to sue you, and then they'd have to know where you work. And a lot of times, if they sue you, they have no idea where you work, and it's not easy to find out where someone works. And maybe you're self-employed. You're driving Uber or something like that. So you work for this company, you get paid immediately. I don't see our Uber drivers there are seniors that are Uber drivers that are part of helps getting garnished. Our clients don't get garnished. And if there was a case where they were, we'd talk to you about what can be done. And so for that reason, if you want to work after you're enrolled in helps to supplement your income, more power to you. I think that's great. I'm 75. I'm still working. I could have retired years ago, but I love to work, and a lot of seniors still want to work, and I'm blessed to be able to work. Okay. Okay. Person says, I'm almost 73 and I'm on a pension. I still owe the IRS an amount of around $2,000. Is there any way I can handle that to get them off of me? Yeah. Okay. First off, I can't recall the last time I saw the IRS ever offsetting or garnishing a pension. Now, they might do that for extremely wealthy people, but I don't see them going after normal person's pensions. They don't do it. The most they would ever do is send you a letter saying they intend to offset 15% of your Social Security. But that doesn't happen very often either. And then if you have modest or lower income, if you got that letter, they wouldn't do that. That notice says they do that after 60 days. Give you time to call the IRS and get on what's called currently not collectible status, CNC status. We have an email that explains how to do that. And for $2,000, the IRS may never do anything anyway. It's too small an amount. But if they were to do that, there's things that be done. We help our clients deal with that, but we don't have to do it very often because it's just really rare they don't do it. It's not cost effective. And if they know that your income is low and they can tell from the computer system the way it is now, they can tell what your income is. They say, it doesn't do any good to try to collect from this guy. He can qualify for currently not collectible status. So they may still send you notice. So what does that mean? If you're paying the IRS now and you can't afford to, you could stop paying them. Now, the IRS is the one that has that rule to get you on currently not collectible status. So why do they put that rule in effect? They don't want you going without basic needs like medicine or the right foods or heat to pay taxes. Because if you go without your medicine or food or your heat, you could get sick and it cost the government more to take care of you. So no, you don't need to worry about those $2,000 in taxes. Getting quiet in here. So a lot of people are lurkers, right? They listen to this later and they're not active, which is fine. I don't mind. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. But I don't get worried if I don't get questions, okay? Because I've got all these questions here, and I know because we get them every day. And a lot of people call us and we ask, how'd you find helps? Well, we saw you on YouTube. So that's why we keep doing this. But I always like questions. So don't hesitate to ask. But I'm not going to beg for them. You guys can beg for them on my behalf. Okay, person contacts us. My only source of income is Social Security retirement pay. Because of this economy, I had to start using credit cards. I need the equity in my home in order to move to a different state for health reasons. Can the credit card company put a lien on my home? Well, they'd have to sue you and get a judgment, and then at that point, it could possibly be a lien, depending on the state where you live. Okay? But if you haven't been sued, you don't need to worry about it. You could sell the home, take the money, and move. And we'd talk to you about what to do in that instance. Just to be safe, and they may not need help, but one day they will. Can I sign up my kids that are on Social Security? No, we want the person that needs us to sign. Now, there's nothing wrong with you helping someone to sign up with helps, but we don't have a program to sign up someone for helps in the future if they happen to need us. If you inform about us, they'll know when to sign up. I'm here, but I'm not able to. You don't need to participate. Just listen. If I can answer questions, that's what we're here for. They're growing, and on Social Security they can't do it. Yeah, well, okay. So we have a lot of people call us about their parents, or maybe a brother or sister, or maybe a daughter or son that's on Social Security disability or something, and they help that person enroll in helps. Okay, they either have to have a power of attorney or we have to talk to them together at the same time at one point. But maybe someone else is the one that's enrolling them. But we have to have the person that's being enrolled their authority to enroll them in helps. Okay? That's how we do it. Okay. Some of these things I read, I've heard before, I swear it, but we get asked the same questions a lot. Okay. I heard, and if I sound happy when I talk, and I know to a lot of you this is really serious stuff, and you're scared, and so I'm not making fun of anyone when I talk, and but I have to also show a little degree of confidence when I explain these things to people, so that you realize I don't want people to be scared. And if I start acting scared when I talk to people about these problems, I could make you scared, which I don't want to do. So this person calls and this is what the message said. I heard that one's Social Security couldn't be garnished. That's right, it can't be. But wanted to be sure. Yesterday I called legal aid, elder law, and finally the Social Security's main number. No one I spoke to with it heard about it. Okay. No one was willing to help me or send me to someone who could help me. I've been working with a debt relief company for the past 10 months. I became ill, and they said they could reduce my income by 50, my debt by 50%. Well, the first thing I say to myself, when you enrolled with this debt management company or debt settlement company, debt relief company, did they tell you that your income was protected? The answer is probably no. They never told you that. If they would have told you that, you would have known you didn't need their help, and you want to enroll with them, and they want to be making money off you. But anyway, let's go on. They go, 7 months later, no action has been taken, or 10 months later, no action has been taken, and now apparently I'm in collections. Suddenly the debt relief company says, oh, sorry, now it's in collections. We're only able to get a 20% reduction. And you have to sign up today or they're going to garnish your wages. They've been charging me $75 a month for the privilege, along with $270 enrollment fee, and now I'm supposed to jump and sign a bad deal that I can't afford. No thanks. I'm dropping this company and will take my chances. Now I know that my Social Security will be protected. Yeah. And if you don't want to be harassed by the creditors, you call us. You're going to give us the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone, and we're going to represent you ongoing. So if they turn it over to a new collection agency, you get a new demand for the debt 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years down the road. You get it to help. We're going to send a cease and desist letter out. If you got sued, you're going to get us a copy of the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you, let them know your income is protected. You're going to call us. We're going to explain why you don't need to go to court, why you don't need to worry. And we're there to answer a plethora of other questions. We don't represent people in court. We don't give legal advice, but what we do give is legal information, accurate information. Okay? So this guy, he says they called legal aid. Well, legal aid doesn't deal with this stuff. That's not what they do. They do a lot of good things, but they generally don't deal with debt matters. And if they do, sometimes they don't know what they're doing, but they don't. And then he said they called elder law. Well, elder law attorneys they represent the half of seniors that have money, so they don't. The attorneys that helps me and the other attorneys that helps, we have filed tens of thousands of bankruptcies. We've been dealing with debt collectors for decades, so we know what the law is. We know how to protect you, and we know what your rights are. Okay, and then they called Social Security, Social Security, and the person who talks to Social Security didn't know anything about your protection. And if they did, they're not authorized to talk to you about it. And then, least of all, your bank doesn't know anything either. So, but you will get accurate information from helps. I promise you that. So Jerry says, I have a 2017 vehicle that's paid for and haven't been sued for it. And I've been sued for a solar panel loan. In Maryland, can they come after my vehicle or my home? How can I get info on this for my own knowledge? Well, you can call us on the phone. And you can also, you know, if it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors, like someone suing you on a solar panel, to come after your car. They just don't do it. Now, what about your home? Depending on the state, you have a certain amount of equity in the home that's protected. It's called a homestead exemption. But let's say, I don't know what the homestead exemption is in Maryland. I can find out here in a second. Depends on the state. So in Maryland, exemption is pretty small. It's like $25,000. And it can go up a little bit depending on some things, but it's not a lot. It's pretty modest. But, it could change overnight. Oregon this year changed their exemption from 40,000 to 150,000. And so a lot of states are raising their exemptions on homestead for different reasons. Okay, so let's say the home is worth 300,000 and you owe 100,000. You got a $200,000 equity. If they sue you and get a judgment, are they going to come after your home? No. Why? Well, they'd have to pay off $100,000, then they have to pay you $25,000, and then it's a complicated process for them to do that. Could they legally do it? Yeah, I suppose they could, but they don't do it. Now, well, how do you know, Eric? Well, because I'm 78, 70, 75. We've got tens of thousands of clients that helps. We don't see it. It doesn't happen. Now, if they were to do it, it could be stopped in different ways. Maybe you own the home with your spouse and the judgment's just against you. Okay? So no, I wouldn't worry about the car. I wouldn't worry about the home. And you can always call and talk to us about it. Okay? Now, you could scare someone into thinking that that's going to happen. You could scare someone. And sometimes attorneys give advice to people based on, without talking about the odds or about the practicality of something actually happening. And you always need to do that as an attorney, in my opinion. Always be able to tell people, yeah, this could happen, but it's not going to happen. If it did happen, there's things that can be done. Gosh, time is flowing today. Person says, what about money in a 401k and an IRA? Are these protected from garnishment? Yes. Yeah. I did receive an official looking demand letter, but reading both sides of the document, the last paragraph stated that the debt is too old to pursue and they won't attempt to collect unless you voluntarily make a payment against the debt. Okay, I've heard this before. So you got a statute of limitations for them to sue you. And maybe it's 5 years or 6 years. That's pretty typical for a state. Okay, that means and it usually, statute of limitations starts from when you incurred the debt or from when you last made a payment. So if you last made a payment 10 years ago, can they try to collect from a debt that's 10 years old? Yeah, they can. They can call and ask you to make a payment. They can't legally sue you, but they can ask you to make a payment. But it's interesting that they say at the end, they say, the last paragraph stated that the debt is too old to pursue and they won't attempt to collect unless you voluntarily make a payment against the debt. In some states, that could restart the statute of limitations. So don't make a payment. So you read the letter and you don't get to the end, and you're reading the letter at the beginning and say, oh, I better make a payment on this. Boom, you make the payment. Now you're on the hook again. But I've seen letters like this before. So why do they do that? Well, they send them out by the thousands. Okay? They send them out by the thousands. Although I don't hear about it that often. Usually when a debt gets beyond the statute of limitations, they're going to leave it alone. But it could come out of the blue. I've had people call me and tell me, hey, I got a letter from a debt that was over 20 years old. Do I need to worry about it? No. Okay, this person asks, and we just got a few minutes, but why do the IRS or state have the right to garnish Social Security for past due debt? Let me clear this up real quick. A state cannot garnish your Social Security for past due income taxes that you owe the state. Your income and your pension is protected from the state tax collector, just like it is from a credit card company. They can't take your Social Security. They can't take your pension. Now, if you work for the state and you have a pension from the state and that you owe that state a taxes, then that could be an exception, but that's pretty rare. But now, what about the IRS? Well, yeah, the IRS could offset 15% of your Social Security. I don't see them going after pensions, but they're not going to do that until they send you a letter saying they're going to do that after 60 days and gives you enough time to apply for currently not collectible status, like I talked about earlier today. But they probably are not even going to do that. Okay? Okay, tomorrow we start 2 hours later. I'm not going to be doing it tomorrow. One of the other attorneys that helps is going to be doing that. If they can't do it, we're going to cancel it, but hopefully we'll be going to be able to do it tomorrow. I did that a couple of weeks ago, but I don't like it. When I'm here, I'm always going to do this. But it's 2 hours later tomorrow. Okay? Okay, this is one more. Then I'll end with this one. My grandson needed a car, so I bought it in my name. Good grandma. He was not even a co-signer. I have made most of the payments. I cannot afford purchases that I need, so I do without. There needs to be some kind of help for that. I need grocery, medicine, and pay rent. Well, the help is this. You stop making the payment for your grandson. This is what I wrote. You can stop making the payment, tell your grandson to make the payments. You have no obligation to pay for a grandson's car and go without food, medicine, and money for rent. If he wants to drive the car, he needs to make the payments, insurance, and everything else, everything less regarding the car. That's his obligation to do that. You're not teaching him the right thing if you continue doing it for it. Yeah. Now, if you can afford it and you want to do it, that's fine, but you don't need to do it. Or for a kid, for that matter. And sometimes I'll talk to people about this, and they're really uncomfortable. And I said, "You blame it on me." You tell them you have an attorney, and he told you under the law you can't do that. You're not to do that anymore. You can blame it on me. Okay. So press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and call us with questions. I don't want you to worry. We can help you. And we'll be on tomorrow, but I'll be talking to you again personally Monday. Okay? So everyone have a wonderful day, and try not to worry, and call us with your question. 855-435-7787. We're here to help you. Okay? God bless. And I will personally see you Monday, but we'll be on tomorrow. I think Kristen will be doing it tomorrow. God bless. Bye. And Kristen knows what she's talking about, too. She's been doing this a long time. Kristen was the first attorney I hired many years ago. She's very knowledgeable.